it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was playing, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game where it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
They lost in Neyland to Tennessee, 24-17. Again, and look, that puts Alabama in a very tough spot. I was looking at the SEC standings just before. They've got 2 losses now in conference because they lost that Vandy game.
They're still one of the top-ranked teams in the country when they lose. Everyone else drops like a brick when they lose, except for Alabama.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on Sport.
Happy Monday. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you here as we get ready for another edition of Monday Night Football. We'll have a preview of the game coming up tonight with the Giants and Steelers. In addition, of course, World Series Game 3, a really big one in the Bronx. We'll get to that as well. But naturally, we're covering everything in the world of sports today, recapping the National Football League with Adam Caplan. He'll be on the program with us. Also, of course, guest contributors from Sporting News. Vinnie Iyer is in the house as well. So stay with us here on the grid. As we cover everything in the National Football League. It's a big day just with the sports equinox and all the different sports playing at once. NBA is going as well. So why are we going to waste any time with me just talking? Let me get to everything that's happening, see if I can fit this all in this short period of time. But let's be honest, we only have an hour here on the show. All right, begin. Last night in the NFL, we'll start there. Another very impressive performance for Brock Purdy, the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. They come through in this game. I mean, basically the 49ers have looked, let's just say, bad, despite the record, in one game this season. It was against the Kansas City Chiefs. It may just be possible that the Chiefs' defense is the best in the NFL because San Francisco had no problem getting up a 30 spot on Dallas yesterday. Purdy rushed for a touchdown. Of course, George Kittle was very heavily involved in the action. So was Deebo Samuel in this game as well. Offensively for San Francisco, the one player to keep an eye on is the running back, Jordan Mason, who got hurt in this game. They have a bye week, and McCaffrey is supposed to be back. So we will see. And on the side of Dallas, well, it's been more of the same, struggling on offense, not stopping anyone on defense, and then posterity points late in the game. But Kyle Shanahan basically said the 49ers turned this game around thanks to some really good offensive performance from his quarterback and wide receivers, but also not committing as many penalties as they did against the Chiefs.
Stop having penalties. There was no message. It was we got to stop hurting ourselves. We had I think 7.5 yards of play in the first half, and had a bunch of big penalties that I thought really hurt us. Deebo's obvious one getting called back, a couple of the holdings on some long runs. And then, missing that fourth down was big. We felt we were doing some good stuff, but we hurt ourselves, and it was nice to start off in the third quarter and go down and score right away. And D started rolling. I think we got a turnover the next drive and did it again, and got on a little groove there for a little bit. Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it was a gut check for him. I mean, for all of us, things in the first half, we were close, but it didn't go great. Brock, there's a couple plays I know he'd love to have back, and I thought he came out in the second half and There's a few plays that weren't there, and he did a hell of a job extending with his feet. The one in particular, we're trying to throw a screen to Debo, and the DN peeled with it, and means you have no play, and he just ran and turned it into a 16-yarder. So he did some real big things there in the second half.
Really good second half for the 49ers. Again, they have the week off, so a lot of their injured players, Greenlaw, Jennings, McCaffrey, all expected to be back in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, for the Dallas Cowboys, unfortunately, been more of the same. Very tough offensive first half and very tough ending to the game for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
Me personally, frustrated. Frustrated myself that my play. I imagine the rest of the guys are. Not getting the win. 2 in a row. Sitting at 3 and 4. But I can definitely tell you that nobody's shaken or given up. Frustration is very high, but it's a long season. It's a long season. Division games, a lot are still ahead of us. Frustrated. That's the best way that I can put it. Yeah, hell yeah, there's belief. That's all I can ask for. All this team can ask for is an opportunity. Ball in our hand, down 6, to go win the game. And first one. In cut, got to just put the ball higher. Nowhere else, I think, in that moment. From my view, to go with the ball, just got to put it higher and/or scramble, create something with my legs being its first down. The second down play, they did a good job. Took Ferg away underneath, kind of bracketed this corner route, forced me out of the pocket. Third down, liked the matchup, took a shot, didn't convert it. And then on the fourth down, I got pressure early. I had to get out of the pocket and kind of put something up for hopes. Hope that there was contact on the end. Didn't go that way. 2 guys on 1. They made the plays when they needed to, and we didn't.
That's the bottom line. The Cowboys having a tough season. When the biggest story coming out of Dallas before a game is activating Dalvin Cook, your season is not off to a great start. Meanwhile, the Washington Commanders' season was off to a great start, and it continued on Sunday. Jaden Daniels, who was questionable going into the game against the Chicago Bears, ended up playing and ended up delivering the play of the season against the Bears with a Hail Mary 70-yard pass in the end zone to Noah Brown, who ended up catching it in the back of the end zone. The Bears, didn't exactly try to knock the ball down. I think that's probably safe to say. Instead, they popped it up in the air, and Brown was waiting, as you see, right behind him. Daniels talked about the game winner after the game.
None, really. No. Just throw the ball up, give my guys a shot. I didn't see anything. No, not really. I just heard people screaming and our sideline rushing the field. So that's how I knew. I was juiced up for sure. I'm excited because, that's kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Like, not too many people get to experience stuff like that. That was my first time. So, obviously, I was juiced up the whole stadium, team, sideline, everybody. It's specifics that in detail that we try to coach up, but at the end of the day, it's like everybody runs to a spot, buy some time, and let it fly.
No question. The Commanders, at this point, the surprise of the NFL season in a positive way as they head toward the playoffs for the first time in a long time. All right, tonight, Game 3, a chilly night in the Bronx. Yankees up against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Yeah, folks, probably got to win this one, I would say, down 0-2. I don't know if you caught the games this weekend. They were awesome, especially the walk-off grand slam. Haven't seen anything like that in my life. Tonight, Walker Buehler will start for the Dodgers, and Clark Schmidt will start for the Yankees. The Yankees minus 146 tonight, and certainly are big favorites with a total of 8.5 in the game. The Dodgers, by the way, to win the series, their price has moved up all the way almost to minus 500. Yankees plus 360. So if you want the Yankees, tonight is your night definitely to take them at that plus 360. In fact, probably, if I don't mind saying so myself, that's probably better than even just taking the Yankees to win this game. Plus 360 to win the series. And there's some other odds if you're interested in getting involved in that. All right, let's run through the rest of the National Football League. Yesterday, Kansas City Chiefs beat the Raiders, and they're 7-0 on the season. The Raiders did get a backdoor cover, as they say, yesterday. 8.5-point favorites. Raiders cover in this one. How about Jameis Winston returns to the Cleveland Browns starting lineup, immediately throws for 334 yards, and they beat the Ravens 29-24. Tua Tagovailoa came back. They had a 20-10 lead. The defense gave it up. Cardinals kicked a late field goal. They beat Miami 28-27. And the Falcons, another barn burner with the Buccaneers. Remember that Thursday night game a few weeks ago? This one, 57 points, 31-26, as the Falcons end up winning. Tampa Bay, of course, missing a lot of their players. As far as the New York Jets are concerned, well, all they had to do was beat the lowly Patriots to stay in the playoff hunt. Couldn't do it yesterday. They lost their 5th game in a row, 25-22. Looks like their season is kaput. Jordan Love escaped with a minor injury to his groin, although Malik Willis came back and helped the Packers win 30-27. Texans win a close game 23-20 against the Colts, and the Eagles in the second half came alive against the Bengals. They win 37-17. Best offense going right now in the National Football League. They keep scoring 40, 50 points a game, folks. It is the Detroit Lions. Make no mistake about that. They put a 52 spot on Tennessee yesterday. 52-14, the final. Lions are 12.5-point favorites. They win easily. Also did the Denver Broncos over the Carolina Panthers, 28-14. Bo Nix threw 3 touchdown passes. A snooze fest with the Chargers and Saints. My gosh, this one was like putting me to sleep until the 4th. 26-8 the final. And Josh Allen and the Bills beat the Seahawks 31-10. New AP poll finds Miami all the way up to number 5 after their win against Florida State. So it's Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, and Miami. And Texas not doing themselves any favors this weekend. In case you missed that game, they narrowly escaped a loss to the Vanderbilt Commodores. Final score 27-24 as Vandy was 18.5-point underdogs in that game. Steph Curry hurt also for Golden State. We'll talk about that as well. Don't go away.
Talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks. Offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, 2 mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball, but the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players at home run. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They lost in Neyland to Tennessee, 24-17. Again, and look, that puts Alabama in a very tough spot. I was looking at the SEC standings just before. They've got 2 losses now in conference because they lost that Vandy game.
They're still one of the top-ranked teams in the country when they lose. Everyone else drops like a brick when they lose, except for Alabama.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Closing in on the halfway point of the NFL season in 2024. Let's check in with Vinnie Iyer of Sporting News. We'll go over some of the results from Sunday and a little preview of Monday Night Football. And, Vinnie, last night, more of the same, I think, really, when you think about it for both teams. I think the 49ers have been a little inconsistent this season. I just kind of want to throw away that game against Kansas City. I feel like they just were completely off and were missing Debo and all those other wide receivers last week. And for Dallas, I mean, Vinny, I don't even know why we're even still talking about them at this point. It kind of feels like we should just move on. I know they're the Cowboys and they get the ratings, but I feel like it's like time to focus on another team. They just don't have it this year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way the Commanders are playing, getting that last second win with the Hail Mary. They're in control. The Eagles are playing well. There's not room for the Cowboys right now out of this division to make the playoffs. So the Cowboys and Jets, we're still talking about them because we keep putting them in prime time, but the results are not there. I mean, the Cowboys just don't look good overall. I mean, their defense has a lot of issues without Micah Parsons. They're just not a very good team right now overall. You're right. The name is there. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Yet they're in primetime again on Thursday. So
yeah,
it's these two teams that we just keep being subjected to, and they're just not very good right now. And again, I don't think it's going to get better. These schedules are really hard. I mean, the Cowboys have to face a bunch of division winners and the Eagles down the stretch. So this is not going to get better in Dallas. It's not going to be suddenly a November, December turnaround we've seen in years past with this team.
Yeah, we'll see them on Thanksgiving coming up. That you can rest assured. All right, maybe if there's any optimism, it would be on the side of the 49ers. I mean, Vinny, that was a pretty nice win for them there yesterday. And George Kittle had 6 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown. And when they're missing receivers, Vinny, it seems like that's when Kittle is at his best. When they have their full complement, he's like 4 catches, 40 yards, something like that. But he went off again yesterday, as he does once, twice, 3 times a year. And, they're going to get Jennings back. They're going to get McCaffrey back. I know all the fantasy people are very upset that Mason's out. But look, you had to know eventually this was going to come to an end. They got a matchup. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 49ers play the Bills on Sunday night in a couple weeks. That's a really good game, too. But look, they should be among the favorites in the NFC. Some teams in the regular season can sleepwalk a little bit, and I feel like that's what's happened with the 49ers thus far.
Yeah, and they knew they were going to make the playoffs, and you've seen what's happened with the division. I mean, the Cardinals lead it for now at 4-4, but the 49ers have the same record. The Seahawks are fading fast. The Rams are kind of hanging around a little bit, but when the 49ers are healthy, which they will be after this bye, at least at the key positions, they're okay without Brandon Ayuk. They proved that. They can still put up a lot of points there. But when you look at their schedule going forward, I think you'll see a better 49ers team. I think it was encouraging that Brock Purdy played so well, despite not having Ayuk, found some other weapons there. So I think they're feeling it. They're just feeling out this season a little bit, trying to stay afloat. And look at the schedule and the standings. There's all of a sudden 4-4 in first place where they expect to be. And they have some time because their division's not good. Just a lot like the Atlanta Falcons, who are just kind of getting a walkover in the NFC South.
Yeah, a lot of people thought 3 teams would come out of the NFC West in the playoffs. There'll be one, and that team probably will win 10 games at the most. Speaking of the Falcons, a strange team a little bit for me, Vinny. Like, I don't know how to explain what happened to them last week, but what I saw this week is kind of what I thought we would see, which is their defense isn't fantastic, but good enough. But their offense, you would think, is good enough to win them a lot of games. And as you mentioned, at this point, they are the favorites to win the division. They beat the Buccaneers yesterday, and they needed every piece of offense that they could. Kyle Pitts came alive in this one, 31-26. And on top of it, Vinny, the good news for the Falcons is their schedule is pretty soft coming up. You would expect them potentially to win the division fairly easily. But, I just don't know about them from week to week because, again, you look back at what happened against Seattle, a team that just got beat by Buffalo. I understand this is a week-to-week league in the NFL. But I can't fully go all in with Atlanta until I see them roll off like a few wins in a row.
Yeah, they're very pass dependent at this point. I mean, it's a very much a 180 situation from what they did with Arthur Smith last year. A lot of 2 tight end sets, a lot of run heavy looks. This year, they seem to be willing to abandon the run early and get into their pass mode. And you can live and die by that, right? When Kirk Cousins is protected, he's sitting back in the pocket, can make big plays, you're going to win those type of games. But last week when they had the Seahawks and they wanted to stick with that game plan, that was the week to go ballistic with the running game, as we saw what the Bills did against the Seahawks. So sometimes these teams stick with what they do and don't want to deviate. And so if the Falcons can pass on a team, they're going to have a lot of success. But if they face a tougher pass defense that has a weaker run defense, they got to pivot a little bit. They still have a very good offensive line and a very good running back that they should lean on, and that'll determine how far they can go.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, tonight's game is probably not going to be the most exciting Monday night game of the season. Steelers 5.5-point favorites against the Giants, total of 36.5. I mean, I don't know. Is this like the Chargers-Saints script, I guess? Maybe. Like, it feels like that's maybe the kind of game that we get tonight. 5.5 points does seem like a lot. I mean, Pittsburgh wins every game by 1. So, I don't know. What do you see tonight?
Yeah, the Giants could be competitive here. I mean, you have some weapons with Malik Neighbors there, and the Steelers are a good defense, but they're not always as dominant as we think they are. They can give up some yards and points there. But that said, I mean, it's very interesting to see the Steelers get back to what they wanted to do last week, run the ball well, Russell Wilson throwing the ball downfield. I don't think the Giants have a lot of answers for that. They're not a good run defense. They're not good at those contested balls downfield. They're not good at play-action quarterbacks either. So all these things seem to work against them pretty badly against the Steelers. I think it'll be pretty lopsided, and I think the biggest question is, are we going to see Drew Lock in there for the Giants, and are they going to make that change? Because I don't see Daniel Jones having a very good game against this defense, especially if they get behind early.
Yeah, I still think, I mean, he's not underrated anymore, but I still think as long as T.J. Watt is on the field, I mean, that's just bad news for the other team. I never thought, Vinny, that T.J. Watt would end up being better than J.J. Watt in a million years. I never would have guessed that. I mean, I got to tell you, I think it's going to happen. I think T.J. Watt's career is going to end up better than J.J. Watt, which is crazy to say because both those guys are headed to the Hall of Fame. Anyway, Vinny, great to catch up with you. Thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, coming up next, it's time for the Sound Off. We'll hear from Coach Prime and also the latest on Shohei Ohtani's appearance potentially tonight.
Talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks. Offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you guys do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like this that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball, but the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players at home. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They lost in Neyland to Tennessee, 24-17. Again, and look, that puts Alabama in a very tough spot. I was looking at the SEC standings just before. They've got 2 losses now in conference because they lost that Vandy game.
They're still one of the top-ranked teams in the country when they lose. Everyone else drops like a brick when they lose, except for Alabama.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Time to get a little bit of a college football bowl preview. Folks, we're only 2 months away from that, believe it or not. With Coach Prime, we'll also talk a little New York Jets, and we'll start off with some World Series comments from the Dodgers manager. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, one of the pieces of information that we're waiting on is to see if Shohei Ohtani is going to play in Game 3 for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and all indications are that he will. But still, let's, not totally understand what's going on here, because we knew that he had a shoulder issue, subluxation, I think was the medical term, after Game 2 against the New York Yankees when he slid into second base. There was some talk that maybe he would miss a game or two, and now maybe he won't miss any games at all. Dave Roberts, manager of the Dodgers, gives us a status update on the National League 2B MVP.
So as far as test results, we got doctors scrambling everywhere. I don't have them. This is more me going by the training staff. Shohei, feeling good this morning, range of motion, strength. Yeah, I mean, I think that, taking dry swings, which he's done, but then obviously taking balls off the tee, batting practice in the cage, that's going to be telling. And I think that he's obviously very well aware of himself and his body. So if he feels good enough to go, then I see no reason why he wouldn't be in there.
And is this a thing where he could possibly injure it worse by playing through it?
What's that? I think that, once we make the decision that he can play, I would assume that there isn't a possibility of that.
Jack, on your left.
Is this more of a pain tolerance and comfort thing for him at this point?
It will be. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
All right, no lineups out yet. The game is not until tonight in the Bronx, so we'll know later this afternoon. You'll check back with Scott Farrell, coast to coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. He'll tell you. All right, meanwhile, Colorado Buffaloes got off to a great start a season ago and then fell flat. Well, the Buffs playing pretty good football, and it looks like they're going to be headed toward, at the very least, a solid bowl game, maybe even one in January. Now, making the college football playoff pretty far-fetched at this point, but Coach Prime will take it. This is a team that completely fell apart November and December of last season. And so even though it's a smaller goal that they have achieved, it's still a big one for the school.
It's cute. It really is, because we really want that, but that's not all we're after. That's one of the hurdles that we're jumping over, that we're going over. That's a tremendous hurdle that we're happy, we're excited, but that's not the end goal for us. That's the beginning. That's the beginning. But we are thankful and appreciative that the hard work is going noticed. We're happy about some things. We're happy about some of the players and what they're doing. I got to see the film to see what everyone truly did and clean up some of the mistakes we made, tremendous mistakes we made, because we shouldn't have let that game get that close. But we got the dub. That's what counts.
Hey, Coach. Brian Howell with Boulder
Yes, sir.
Gamer. I have 2 questions for you. First off, how good is it to see Travis be Travis again after a couple off weeks? Well, injured weeks.
No, we never doubt Travis whatsoever. So him being himself is just what we expect. That's the only thing we expect. We don't expect to see anything else.
Subplot to the Buffalo season will be getting in a bowl game, and then will Dion have his son, Shedeur Sanders, play in that bowl game? Will Travis Hunter play in the Buffalo's bowl game? Based on last year, no one has played in the non-playoff bowl game, so we will see. Meanwhile, the New York Jets yesterday, pretty big favorites against the New England Patriots, didn't cover, didn't win, and it looks like their season is headed toward a high draft pick. Casey Hudson has the latest on the deflated New York Jets.
Did anybody have the Jets catching another L today on their bingo card? Because I sure did not. No. Losing 25-22 to the Patriots, who are trying to figure out what this team is supposed to look like moving forward, is pretty ridiculous. The amount of talent on the Jets side is ridiculous. Letting the Patriots in that second half of today's football game, ridiculous. But you know what's not ridiculous? Now their odds are changing. When it comes to the AFC East, they're sitting at 37-1 odds to even be a contender. The Dolphins, who have been struggling immensely, are sitting ahead of them. So let us know. Is it pretty much over for the Jets? I mean, I'm trying not to hit the panic button, but we're almost at that midway point. And yes, injuries have played a factor, but you're supposed to have one of the top defenses, at least top 10 defenses in the mix, and you can't stop the Patriots from coming back in the second half of a game that you should have commanded from top to bottom.
All right, we'll be right back. Don't go away.
you talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks, offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game where it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you guys do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball, but the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players hit home run. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They lost in Neyland to Tennessee, 24-17. Again, and look, that puts Alabama in a very tough spot. I was looking at the SEC standings just before. They've got 2 losses now in conference because they lost that Vandy game.
They're still one of the top-ranked teams in the country when they lose. Everyone else drops like a brick when they lose, except for Alabama.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Time to take a look back at some of the games in the National Football League from Sunday, as Adam Caplan is with us once again here on NewsWire. And Adam, you're not going to get a better finish in any game this season than we saw yesterday. Maybe not so much on the Bears side a couple of different times. Weird play calling at the end of the game. And then, naturally the play at the end of the game, too. I don't know why Bears guys were just jumping up, tapping the ball, because that's what leads to a Hail Mary touchdown, like popping it up in the air, right? But anyway, Commanders get the win. They appear to be one of the teams of destiny this season to me.
Well, like you said, unbelievable ending, also an unbelievable opportunity for me to use Tariq Stevenson to teach my oldest son about karma and how that can really work against you. If anyone missed the video of him out there just taunting the fans, not paying attention at the end of the game, then, oh, crap, they snapped the ball, I got to go jump into the middle of the fray, and he is the one that tipped the ball, obviously, into the hands of the player that made the winning catch there for the Commanders. To your point, I think that you could look at this game in a variety of different ways in terms of ultimately how it ended. Did one team really deserve the game more than the other? I mean, neither team played particularly great, certainly not offensively. I thought that, Chicago was a team that just it hung around long enough. Washington gave the Bears so many opportunities, and obviously stalling out repeatedly in the red zone, being held to field goal after field goal. It felt like the Bears were going to win. And then when they finally took that lead, for them to, in the final 25 seconds, whatever it was, obviously give it back on the Hail Mary, it did feel a little kind of, to use the word again, I guess, karmatic about these Commanders and what they are in the process of doing this year, because Jaden Daniels was by no means exceptional in his return from that injury the week prior. He was good when he had to be, ultimately, but we went weeks not seeing this team punt, it felt like, let alone not scoring touchdowns out there, and they finally kind of had their offensive woes. But yeah, I mean, had that team lost and fallen, the half game behind the Eagles in the NFC East, and just how jam-packed that division is, the Cowboys obviously do what they did last night, it would have felt like a kind of a photo finish in the making right around halfway through this season. But to win that game as improbably as Washington did, and showing its versatility both offensively and defensively, and clearly a little bit of luck there at the end. It feels like we're looking at Washington winning the NFC East, and that is just an inevitability. And sure, you may have multiple teams in that division make the playoffs, but maybe it's getting rid of Dan Snyder, I don't know, but there is something special that is going on there with that team.
Yeah, they've looked really good all season long. And you're right, yesterday a little anomaly, but who knows? Maybe the Bears' D is, in fact, pretty good, and maybe that's part of it. All right, so the Ravens' D let things up a little bit yesterday, which was surprising, against the Cleveland Browns. Jameis Winston steps in. He throws for over 300 yards, hits Tillman with a touchdown late. Not as much Derrick Henry as we're used to seeing, but good teams, bad teams, Adam, it doesn't seem to matter. There's always that disappointing game on the schedule, and this is probably Baltimore's.
I would love to say that, except how many times have we said that about Baltimore this year? I recognize the Ravens are out to a 5-3 start, and they're right in the thick of everything, but consider their schedule, right? I mean, in the beginning of the season, very nearly stole that game against the Chiefs, so fine, but then they give one up late against the Raiders, who we know are not good. They allowed the Cowboys to come back from down double digits in the fourth quarter to only beat them by 3 points ultimately. The Bengals, that was a back and forth affair, nothing easy about it. Kind of the same thing with the Buccaneers last time out. And so I don't know, it feels like there's something that's a little bit fraudulent about the Ravens. I'm not sure that if I was looking to place a futures bet right now on who's going to win the Super Bowl, those odds would have to be longer for me to really be attracted to the Ravens. Despite all the offensive weapons, Lamar and what he's capable of doing, Derrick Henry is having an otherworldly season. They've got, great, Zay Flowers, he bounced back in a big way this week. They've got a lot of talent, obviously, but there's just something, and maybe it's the defense, but there's something about that team that I just can't trust in really big, important games. And I'm not saying that yesterday's game was a really big, important one, but as we like to say in the gambling space, it smelled, didn't it? Like, there's a reason that everybody was on the Browns at +9, 9.5 earlier in the week, even as it came down closer to kickoff. Like, I just kept, I was pulling a Cam Stewart. I just kept reinvesting. I'm doubling down on the Browns as we got closer to that game starting, because the Jameis Winston narrative and coming in, and you knew that he was going to be exponentially better than Deshaun Watson, even with no Amari Cooper anymore. It was only a question of how much better. Now, did I think the Browns were going to go out and win that game? I didn't. I figured it was going to look a lot like some of these really close, narrow, not cover the spread wins for Baltimore that we've seen so many times already. But am I shocked that Winston and the Browns went out and won? I'm not, because it just sort of felt like one of those weird days where, and there was a lot of it in the NFL yesterday. I'm sure you've been talking about it all show. Definitely. A lot of weird finishes, a lot of weird games across the league. And this shaped up as being one of them going in. And so the fact that the Browns were just the latest dog to not only cover but win outright is not surprising. I only wish that Jameis Winston didn't screw up the, lose yourself Eminem lyrics after the game in his post-game interview.
That was comedy. And by the way, the Browns seem to beat the Ravens once a year, every year, whether it's in Baltimore, in Cleveland, and just some strange result. Is it right that the Eagles have not scored a point in the first quarter all season? I mean, that seems
not
insane
a single
to
point.
Me. That seems insane.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's funny. We were, I had shows over the weekend here on the grid, and we were talking about that in terms of how do we bet this game. Now, I was in favor of the Bengals. I was on the Bengals money line, the Bengals -2.5. Obviously, they were beaten down in a big way. I think a big part of that was no T. Higgins being available, but the Eagles, they absolutely smacked them around. But it was all right if you don't trust the spread one way or the other, and you don't have a firm feel on who's going to win the game, then yeah, let's look at some trends. And a remarkable trend is that, as you said, the Eagles have not scored a single first quarter point, and the Bengals going into that game yesterday were one of the best defenses in the first quarter, only allowing not even, I think, 3 points per first quarter over the course of the year. And it was a first quarter line of, I think, 9.5 points. And so that just felt like an autoplay on the under, and you get the one touchdown from Cincinnati, and that was it. Hits again. And so it's definitely something to pay attention to going forward. I don't know what it is with the slow starts, but the Eagles, they don't seem to wake up offensively until quarter number 2.
All right. Tonight, is there a backdoor for the Giants? Steelers -5.5, total of 36.5. I was just saying earlier, Adam, this feels like Chargers Saints on Monday Night Football to me. But again, it's a Monday night dog. Historically speaking, it's above 50% for our lifetimes. Is that the case again tonight, or does Pittsburgh, just lull them to sleep with the run game?
It's a good question. I wish I had a good answer. I think Pittsburgh wins the game. Do the Steelers cover the almost touchdown spread? It feels big, given that the Giants obviously, they like Malik Neighbors. As long as Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary and these actual offensive talents, no disrespect, I guess, intended, but disrespect to Daniel Jones, as long as those guys are available, then yeah, I mean, a backdoor cover is always live. I don't think they're going to win. I think Pittsburgh wins, but the 6 is a little bit tough, or 6.5, or wherever you're seeing it, 5.5 even. I saw it some places this morning. I would just play the under in this game. I don't think we're getting a lot of scoring. And the Giants to this point, they're 6-1 to the under on the year. The Steelers are 4-3. I'm looking at the numbers here. Giants have gone under in 16 of their last 22 games. They have failed to reach 10 points in 3 games this year. It's just a function of whether you believe that the Steelers' offense has really come alive and is that much more efficient with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I would agree. It doesn't seem like Tomlin's going to open up that offense no matter what this season. Thanks again, Adam, for coming on the show.
Always.
All right, Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider, is up next. Don't go away.
Talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks. Offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, 2 mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball with the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players at home. I call it covering the board. If I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They lost in Neyland to Tennessee, 24-17. Again, and look, that puts Alabama in a very tough spot. I was looking at the SEC standings just before. They've got 2 losses now in conference because they lost that Vandy game.
They're still one of the top-ranked teams in the country when they lose. Everyone else drops like a brick when they lose, except for Alabama.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. We continue our discussion on the NFL games from Sunday with Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider. We'll review several of the games we haven't talked about yet on the show. A ton of games, no bye weeks, so can't get through them all. Adam, thanks again for coming on the show. Let's start off with Green Bay, Jacksonville, a game that was really back and forth for a while. And then late in the game, a couple of big things happened. Jordan Love ends up getting hurt. Malik Willis comes in. And also, I think it's fair to say we do have to give some credit. I mean, Trevor Lawrence threw an incredible pass that Evan Ingram went up and caught to get that game right down to the end. I feel like we've crapped on Trevor Lawrence so much over the last year. I mean, I still think he's going to play and play well in this league. It's just I really don't have an explanation. Third head coach, and still a lot of problems with that team. He's going to have another head coach probably next year as well. And on the Packers side, let's give them credit. Any win these days in the NFL is a good one.
Yeah, no, I'm concerned about the Jordan Love groin injury that he's getting tested today. Jair Alexander got hurt in that game, but the big one is Jordan Love. Now, he missed time earlier this season, and Malik Willis had to come in. And remember, he was just acquired before the season started, Craig, from the Titans. They're not going to ask him to throw the ball out if he has to play going forward. And by the way, they will host the Lions this week, which is obviously a very difficult game. Then they'll be on a bye. But if Malik Willis has to play a lot of running, you're not going to have to throw the ball a lot, but they're loaded at the skill positions, particularly the pass target group, and obviously Josh Jacobs had a great game yesterday. But I was surprised. Look, I turned my picks in on Thursday on Coast to Coast. I definitely liked the Packers to cover that number. The Jaguars are not a good football team. They're just, to me, they're at the bottom of the ball. I'm surprised as anyone they're this bad, but it is a feather in Doug Peterson's cap that they're not winning the season. When ownership evaluates head coaches, they want to make sure that the club is playing hard for their head coach. Right now, I give the Jaguars players credit. They're definitely playing hard for Doug Peterson.
Yeah, and covered the number on that late touchdown yesterday. All right, same thing with the Colts. Colts against the Texans played right down to the finish. Texans definitely, I think, maybe part of the reason why their games are a lot closer this year than they were last year is teams recognize who they are. And so coming into the game, teams are playing much harder against Houston in this first half than they did a season ago. 23-20 the final, as Houston definitely on track to make the playoffs. And who knows, maybe they'll get it going. Stephon Diggs, he was hurt. We'll have to wait and see on that injury. There's some that think that potentially could be long-term. We will see. Colts, they win one week at them, they lose the next. They win the next week, they lose the next. I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're going to be, 8-9, 9-8, somewhere along those lines, and they still probably haven't figured out who their quarterback of the future is.
Yeah, well, a couple things. Well, it's got to be Richardson because they spent a high pick on him. I know he's not playing well, though. Let's get over to Houston. And a reason why, if you're looking at totals, going forward here, the Texans are going to have trouble scoring. You mentioned Stephon Diggs. That could be a long-term injury. He's getting his MRI today. We'll see how that looks. Nico Collins, don't forget, Nico Collins has got the hamstring injury. He's on IR. They're having trouble scoring. That's the problem right now. Joe Mixon's saving the day. He's been unbelievable at running back. Their defense is competitive, though they've had some injuries on the back end. But look, you take out Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins, by the way, is an absolute stud. One of the best ex-receivers. We're talking about a number one receiver for a football team in the National Football League. He's not playing. Well, yeah, their numbers are going to be down. And right now, if you look at their scoring per game, it's going to be going down forward. I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah, and in Houston, again, their win total right now, 11.5. It's just 13-1 to win the Super Bowl. And partially the reason for that is not that the Texans are so good, but it's just like beyond Kansas City and maybe Buffalo, that's about it, really, for the AFC, unless Baltimore, starts getting more consistent on defense. So, all right, so let's go to another. This was probably a surprise result for some, given the fact that this line moved from Miami -2 to all the way up to 4 right before kickoff against the Arizona Cardinals, even with Tua back. And Miami looked much better offensively. In fact, they went up 10 points, Adam, in this game. The Cardinals end up coming back. The defense can't stop. The Dolphins defense can't stop Kyler Murray at all, and they end up kicking a late field goal to win. I have to say, Adam, that this game looked a lot like the other games that Tua has played this season. He plays pretty well. The team is up, and then all of a sudden they fall apart and lose at the end. Meanwhile, Arizona, all of a sudden, right there in the thick of things in the NFC West.
You know what? Let's start when, and you talk about them being up 10. They were up 20-10. I'm like, okay, this is exactly what I thought. Typically, when your star quarterback comes back, you get a sense of energy around the club. Just talking to coaches and executives, when their quarterback is out for a while and he comes back, man, everybody's happy. Let's go on a run here. And when they were up 20-10, I'm like, this is just what I thought. Okay, when I picked this game, like they should have no trouble. But here's the problem: defensively, their lack of a pass rush. With Jalen Phillips out for the season, Bradley Chubb out, they're not getting the pass rush that they thought they would get. They're not that good on the back end anymore. they're very mediocre. I'm disappointed in the Dolphins. I get it. Tua was out, they have quarterback problems, but he's back. You got to win these games. You're at home. Your quarterback's back. You got to close these guys out. I give Jonathan Gannon the credit, the head coach of the Cardinals. They're one of the least talented teams. Their quarterback, Kyler Murray, is getting better and better and better. He's a pain. I know, talking to defensive coaches around the league, he's a pain to play against because he's not Patrick Mahomes. People talk about that. Kyler Murray, you never know what he's going to do with the football. And yesterday, the Dolphins could not figure him out. I give him a credit, and you're absolutely right. They're absolutely in the thick of things here for an NFC wildcard spot. They're absolutely in it. And Marvin Harrison Jr., how about that? He had a great game yesterday. I know the two of them talked about getting on the same page. I give them credit. I didn't see this team being competitive. They're definitely very competitive.
And by the way, give the coaching staff, as you mentioned, a lot of credit there. I mean, to have to play that slug-it-out game with the Chargers on Monday night, travel across country, not just cover, but beat the Dolphins outright. I mean, sort of unheard of for that to happen. Did you have any opinion on tonight's game at all? This 36.5 total between Giants and Steelers. I mean, you'll be watching. I don't know that I'll make it past halftime in this one.
All right. So I heard you and Adam Caplan talking about this. So here's the way I look at it and why I think you guys are correct. You got to be careful with this game. The Giants shocked the world when they went out to Seattle and they handled them. That was like totally out of the blue. Got to travel cross country for our time difference. You're worried about that, but they beat them outright. And since then, they've looked awful. Where the Steelers are, by the way, they have their bye after this game. They're going to get a bunch of injured players, I'm told, back after the bye. So they got to win this game. I know it's not conference. They're clearly way better. I like the Steelers in this game.
All right, thanks, Adam. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Talk about how these series came to a head and what has been happening in this postseason for the Yanks. Offensively, it hasn't been Aaron Judge.
Baseball is such a big win here. All you ask for, East Coast Monster City, West Coast Monster City, the biggest of biggest Titan superstars on both sides here, two mammoth fan bases. The entire country can buy into this one.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game where it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball with the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players at home. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They lost in Neyland to Tennessee, 24-17. Again, and look, that puts Alabama in a very tough spot. I was looking at the SEC standings just before. They've got 2 losses now in conference because they lost that Vandy game.
They're still one of the top-ranked teams in the country when they lose. Everyone else drops like a brick when they lose, except for Alabama.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Fun stories here to close out the show with you, both from yesterday and then one from today. We'll get into a little statue talk. Also, the Bears may as well have had a statue on the field at the end of the game. One of their players seems to be in a little hot water. And then, big day in sports today. So we'll get to it all. Time now for some last licks. All right, one of my favorite players in the history of South Florida, maybe after Dan Marino, could be the greatest player in the history of South Florida sports. Dwayne Wade, who I covered in person and covered a lot of Heat games, covered him winning the championship. Arguably, to me, I mean, again, outside of Marino, Wade is right there. And so finally, he retired a couple of years ago. And yesterday, they unveiled a statue for Dwayne Wade outside of the Kaseya Center in Miami. And unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately, I mean, I don't know. This statue, I haven't seen it yet in person, so it's really hard for me to make a judgment based on pictures. But if I did, I would tell you that this does not look at all like Dwayne Wade. So I'm not really sure how they came up with this. Now, apparently, there are some things floating now on social media that I saw on Instagram that show that Wade was very much a part of this process, and he is happy with the way that it looks. So if that's the case, fine. Now, I commented yesterday on social media, which is rare these days, I've been quiet on there, that I thought that picture that you see there looked like the zombie from I Am Legend with Will Smith. I mean, that was my take on it. But Dwayne, one of my favorites of all time, got to know him when he played with the Heat very well. He and his family, fantastic people. Very happy for him. But I got to say, can't give this one in terms of a grade an A or even a B. Don't think I could do that. A C? Could I give it a C? I don't know. I have to see it in person. Next time I go to the Heat game, I'll tell you what I think. All right, I'm going to give this guy an F. Tyreek Stevenson. What is wrong with you, man? Player on the Chicago Bears, defensive back. Somebody on social media posted yesterday a video of Tyreek Stevenson on that Hail Mary pass that Jaden Daniels threw in the back of the end zone. Stevenson is looking and taunting the crowd right before the ball is thrown. My gosh, what is he thinking? This is a learning moment for this player. I get it, and we're all going to pile on today. But this guy is literally taunting the fans, and the fans, oh my gosh, folks, we can't show you the video. They're pointing to Stevenson to show him that the game is going on. And he looks over, and then he's the guy that tapped the ball up in the air, and Noah Brown caught it in the back of the end zone. Oh my gosh, this poor guy may have to have this on his resume as his shining moment the rest of his career. In fact, DJ Moore, Bears wide receiver after, says that they're going to have some sort of meeting about this with the leadership. So don't know if he's going to make it through the week. It will Tyreek Stevenson. Why not what? Why not what? Why not will he make it? It doesn't sound like he may make it through the week based on some of the comments that I saw on social media, but we will see. Hopefully I'm wrong. I don't want to see it. I want to see this guy make a play so he doesn't have to be known for this for the rest of his life. But there are players that have made mistakes in the NFL. That's all we remember them for. This is true. I got a list. This is one for him. Sports Equinox happened, I guess, last week. It's going to happen again this week. It's the 31st time in the history of sports that all hands are on deck tonight. Major League Baseball has the World Series. Hockey has their games going on. The NBA has their games going on. And, of course, the NFL has Monday Night Football. So there is something for everyone, as we would say today. And so make sure you are locked right here for the rest of the day. Those of you who are asking me, your Sports Equinox, Craig, what will you be watching tonight? Will you be flipping between the NBA, the NHL, all it? It's a World Series. Are you kidding me? It's exactly what I'm going to be watching tonight. I'm not going to be watching anything else. Monday Night Football, my fantasy leagues are done. I won both games. I got no interest or action in the game tonight. I mean, we may only have a few more games left in the baseball season. That's what I will be watching tonight, with another eye, of course, on SportsGrid. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks again to Adam Kaufman for coming on the program, as well as Adam Caplan and Vinnie Iyer. Those were the guests on the show today. Coming up next, of course, we got the early line and Pharrell Coast to Coast. That's followed by Pro Football Today with a preview of Monday Night Football. Thanks again to our director, Luke, and our producer, Frank. Make sure you catch all of the action tonight, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow morning as we recap World Series Game 3, Monday Night Football, and get you ready for World Series Game 4 in the Bronx. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day here on SportsGrid. Thanks for tuning into the show today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place for our next edition of NewsWire. See you then.